No, so you get that. You get a small shovel, a hand rake, and that's it. $8,700.
It's not a John Deere in there?
$8,700. It should be a John Deere, an International Harvester, something else. You can only order them in store. You have to make an appointment. And I was saying on our sister station, you could probably get all of that at Stan's for like $48.
Yeah, it's on sale this week.
Right?
We have the Christian Dior knockoff in right now, and it does come with your own Fisher Price John Deere tractor.
There
and
you
actually,
go.
it's such a high end one. It comes with the trailer attached to the Fisher Price tractor.
Wow.
No, it's crazy. Here's, I like to look at things from like a totally different angle. Like maybe pretend that you live in that realm, in that
You're in
world.
Beverly Hills or someplace.
And I'm wondering, is this a tell that even the clientele that would shop for an $8,500 garden kit from Christian Dior, is that a tell that even gardening has become something going on in the elitist crowd, that 1%? So. Like they're actually using the green industry as therapy to get away from, their Kardashian mentality. I hope I don't get sued for using the Kardashian reference, but that even the elitists are like, I've found gardening, because everybody else is kind of buzzing about that, like learning and
right. And it's something that when you see the elite being interested in it, it's not because they have to be. Certainly they can pay people to do all their gardening, landscaping, everything. But if they want to do it, it's like when they start baking their own bread. There's something going on here.
Yeah, it's let's not ignore it. It's a hobby. It's fun. It's entertaining. I mean, you could go get a loaf of bread, but like my wife agreed with me, which is that's newsworthy right there. That's worth putting over the airwaves. When she came back from Europe, I had mentioned that she was in Europe doing for her medicine side of her occupation. She said, you're absolutely right. In Europe, the bread and the meats and like the smoked salmon for breakfast and stuff is absolutely amazing. They in certain parts, I want to say it's Germany. It is federally, if that's the for us that's the word. I don't know what it is there, but they are incapable, not allowed, not federally permitted to use artificial dyes, colors, preservatives, like it all. So you see a lot more smoked meats, cured things and
preserved in a natural way.
Yeah, they have decided that instead of being able to ship bread and keep it on the shelf for I don't know whether it's 5 days or 5 months.
Right.
They just like even in a kiosk at airport, they have a little bread oven. They're just baking their bread and slicing it. Therefore,
because they're required to.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It is awesome. Like you get this little, $6 sandwich while you're waiting for your airplane, and it's like, wow. In Erie, this would be $20 because it's fresh made bread, cured meat. Like it's really, really good. So that being said, like I think people, even in the elitist community, are finding that this is really fun to plant a couple basil and see it come to fruition and be like get your hands in the soil. And I didn't use the word dirt.
Maybe the Real Housewives will start doing this,
and maybe that is some of the whole even the musicians and the traveling and stuff. It got shut down for a little while, so like you know what. Heck with it. I'm going to grow a garden myself because I'm home. I'm going to take care of it now. Yeah. And it fired up that pure down home country mentality of people that even were, even if they're rooftop gardening in their penthouse suite, they kind of got pulled back to their roots.
Well, what's nice too, I like that. What's nice too about it is if you are like one of these people. Maybe you don't have $9,000, but you're saying, well, maybe I should just get started. I mention this a lot, but it is such a huge thing when you talk about the difference with the real products. If you grow, let's say you just start off, you're growing herbs, and you grow some chives. You go cut those chives, you put them in your scrambled eggs. It's a world of difference.
I really appreciate you inviting me over for Sunday breakfast.
Oh, sure.
That's nice.
Absolutely. And I know no champagne for you, but I will have it.
As long as your wife cooks. I don't want any cow slip in my eggs.
Okay. Just so you like spicy food, then the wife will cook.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah, well, she can take care of that.
So I I have that story. I think I told that on the air before. When my wife and I first started dating, now a decade ago, because I'm not getting any younger, we actually had that instance. Like, oh, I got this idea. Hang on a second. And I run out the front door and I come back inside with a handful of, quote, weeds. And my wife is like, what?
Oh, yeah.
Are you doing? I'm like, do you know who you're dating?
Exactly.
Like, look, trust me, this is English time. This is going to be great with this steak.
Yes.
Chop it up, throw it in the pan. And she's kind of looking out of the corner of her eye going, this guy just ran out in the front yard, pulled something out of the roadside and chopped it up and put it in our dinner.
Sure.
And that's neat. It's fun to be able to go out and pick a couple leaves of sage or whatever. And
wild mint.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's fun.
And it's a great way for people to get started, too. That could be like the first thing you grow are some herbs, and you can immediately, after they grow a bit, start using them in your kitchen. And that's how a lot of people get hooked.
All of us green people are all about using the herb.
Well, that's true. That's why we're so mellow. That's why we laugh during the show and no one else does.
Does your friend still watch solely having zero interest in the green industry
totally.
Just to listen to us heckle one another?
Yeah.
He still hasn't planted a thing in his life.
He might plant a ficus, but that's as far as he goes.
Ficus lyrata, one that just won't die.
It's
kind of like the show. Kind of like the show.
It just won't die.
We'll wilt, but we don't kick it.
Yes, indeed. So tell me, last time we talked to you, there was so much going on at stands, sale-wise. What's cooking at stands right now?
We started off April just business-wise, like to get a reflection on, in order to keep doing what we do and keep growing not only product but in size and business and stuff. There's about 80 staff now total, and to continue the generations. We have to be successful. And when we started May 1, it was such a cold, such a wet, such a dreary April.
Right.
The distance between last year's April and this year's April had me terrified because, wow, this is becoming a really slow, really cold, really wet spring so far. And some of the motivation of that was let's make sure that we keep lots of footsteps coming in. Let's make sure we keep the interest that maybe the pandemic created. And what we're really trying to do is get the customer in that would spend $8,500 for a cat skin.
The Dior customer.
No, I'm totally teasing. The idea was to keep it exciting, keep things going. So we have not lay down on that yet for June. So the month of July coming up is where you get to redeem your loyalty loot. So if you're in our system and you have given us your phone number, which is not, it's not a program like a mass merchant would be where we're just pounding you to death with emails and stuff. Generally, we're either running a pretty decent, noticeable sale, giving something away for free, having a class, something like that. You don't get a bunch of spam kind of stuff. Month of July, month of November are when you get to use that loyalty loot. So how loyalty loot works is throughout the season, all the other times of the year, you stop in, every $10 you spend, you get $1 back.
Yeah.
Bang, simple. When you come in, you can spend up to half of your purchase price in loyalty loot like cash. So you buy $100 fountain or whatever, concrete statuary, something you're like, I wouldn't normally fork out the cash for that. You come in July, November, you can use your points as cash for up to half the purchase. So 50, you have 50 points in the system, bang, we take 50 points out. That starting in July. So I wanted to kind of mention July 1st that starts, but we started today a sale that runs through the end of June, and that's back to the 80s pricing. So
that's right.
We did 80s 1987 pricing, and the fact that I got and a lot of our management staff got so much older, none of us can remember what the 1987 pricing was. So we just kind of went 80s, and we bumped everything down significant amounts, and everything is generally speaking. I'm just kind of paraphrase, everything in the greenhouse. So the tropicals, the house plants, the hanging baskets, the vegetables, the herbs, the annuals, even the larger stuff, the fresh. We have fresh hanging baskets that just got hung this week, believe it or not. We didn't leave out the late, like, ooh, I'm going to do a graduation party. There's fresh stuff hanging up. All that is discounted to 80s pricing in the greenhouse. The advantage to that is if you're a perennial gardener, that's kind of what I had in my head for today, not just the sale. Change of hours too. I mentioned that last week. As of Monday, we went to Monday through Saturday 9 to 6, Sunday 11 to 4. So we're toning back the hours just a little bit, but the stopping in, they're going to definitely be worth your while, being that everything in the greenhouse is in 80s pricing.
Yes.
The perennials. A lot of the perennials in Erie were slow to fire and slow to start because of our wet, cold April as well. So they think, oh, it's still time to sleep. They're like my wife. They just rolled over and kind of gave another hour, and they woke up a little bit late. But right now is when all that material is in its glory. So if I always tell people that come in and say like April, and they're like, I want to get a jump on stuff, like that's great in the perennial world if you know exactly what you want. So if you're coming in looking for, Rudbeckia or Semisophusia, whatever it is in the perennial world that you're looking for, you must really want to know what it is. If you're a perennial gardener, or even kind of expanding your perennial garden because you don't want to plant as many annuals, maybe you had a bed that you were doing some vegetable gardening in, and like, I'm not going to do that this year. I want to kind of fill in some space and not have to. Maybe this gardener is like you and I. We're just getting a little too old to plant as much as we used to every year.
Right.
You want to start perennial gardening in this area. The thing to do is frequent shop. My term. If you come in like every week or every other week, you get to see what interest the perennials have then. So like creeping phlox, it's just green now. It's like a green carpet. But boy, it's the talk of the town. It's the buzz of the world. Come, April, when those are in full bloom, everybody comes in wanting that. No one really comes in looking for creeping phlox unless they want to add on, like, this one didn't take, or I want to expand the bed. I have, emerald, blue creeping phlox. I want to add one. If you know what you're after, you come in this time of year looking for creeping phlox, but generally it's a green carpet. It's not flying off the shelf. But other things, garden phlox, the upright garden phlox, is absolutely amazing right now. And there's some colors right now, the hot pink, single bloom hot pink, that are bigger than I've ever seen. They have kind of bred the varieties of the upright phlox to be much more disease resistant, being in the old fashioned days when I was a kid. If you sneezed on an upright phlox, it got white powdery mildew. It's much more resistant. It still does better if it gets at least one shot of preventative fungicide, but it's not almost mandatory like it used to be when I was a kid.
Right.
There is some dianthus that blooms incredibly long periods of time. A lot of times dianthus is like a cooler crop, doesn't like hot, direct sun, summer, cooking temperatures. Some of the dianthus now is still in fantastic bloom, blooms a little bit longer. There is a new variety. This is perfect for us, our relationship together, Alan. I want to pay homage to your music knowledge. There is a Astilbe out that I like, an Astilbe that I have never seen before. It's really new, and it's called Dark. I dropped the punchline. Horrible. I always want to say Pearl Jam. I don't know why I do it every time.
It's not called Pearl Jam.
It's not Pearl Jam. It is Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon.
Okay.
Is that
really?
Right? Yeah.
It's called Dark Side of the Moon.
Yes, it is. It is an Astilbe.
No kidding.
That will perform well in mostly sun to mostly shade. It's kind of right down the middle. So it will perform really well.
Interesting.
It is called Dark Side of the Moon because a lot of the Astilbe in the past just had kind of a bronze green, if you can picture that, just kind of a reddish tint green, or brilliant plain green. This is black. It is an Astilbe that has a leaf as dark as a heuchera. Heuchera is coral bell. Coral bell is commonly very much grown for its leaf and its texture. It's frilly outside. It does get a bloom, but it's not commonly grown for the bloom. Example, hosta. Hosta's foliar. It's grown for the foliage.
Right,
yeah, it gets a flower, but no one's coming in going, I'm looking for the hosta that has the brilliant bloom.
Right.
That's not really generally happening. You might identify it with, hey, it has a white flower, it has a light lavender flower, but you're growing hosta for the large, filling, foliar, contrasting leaf.
Yes.
This is so cool. Like when Sue,
I gotta see it.
When Sue brought it to me, Sue's our perennial grower, a full-time perennial grower. I said, give me a little bit of what your really outstanding new aha moment kind of perennial is for this year, because I do that in the nursery, like kind of come out and wander around and be like, hey, Sue, what's up with this? Like
Yeah.
this is, and oh yeah, they've kind of shifted gears and renamed this whole series, and it's way better now. And it's just like I keep saying, it's like electronics. They keep tripping over one another to come up with the next greatest thing. So she brought this to me and said, "Look at this," and I said, "Oh, that looks like a coral bell." Nope. Wow, that's an Astilbe. Brilliant, dark. I mean, you don't really truly have a black plant. The black petunia has evolved to be as black as your shirt, but this is like a really deep purple, like really
that
dark.
just sounds gorgeous.
And it gets a really dark red bloom on it that starts off, I mean, really deep, almost burgundy, and as it opens, it starts to lighten. And she said what she sees in the pot is like, as far as the crop goes, just to give it an assessment, a 1 star or 5 stars. She said every one of them took. It's been really not finicky. It's grown in the greenhouse in the heat. It's not got marginal burn, which some of the dark stuff can if it gets too much heat and sun. She said it's pretty much just turnkey. It's fantastic.
Interesting.
Dark side of the moon. So it is dark leaf, Astilbe, sunshade lover, beautiful, brilliant bloom, and has a music-related name.
I like that. Let's jump on the phone lines. You're on the air with Josh. Good morning. Hello there. You are not on the air.
It was something you said, not me.
No, that was Roger Waters. He's like, I never authorized that. That's just a little rock and roll joke there for you folks. 451-1400 is our number, and the phone lines are open.
It took me a second, but everything takes me a second.
Well, yeah, I get that. Me too. But what I like to hear about, what I love to hear about plants like that, because, and I talked about this the other week, we as Erie people do get in a rut, and we go, well, this is the plant I use, and this is what I want. To change it up, you've got to go to stands and see what you have and go, what is that? Because that's what happens. People go through saying, well, I'm going to buy a hosta. Then they go, what's that?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what happens.
Yeah, I like to do that. Like, come over here. I want to show you a ligularia. What? It's been around forever. It grows anywhere. Like but it will work in the shade. It gets a big yellow spike flower. Like lig what? I'm like, yeah, you came for a hosta. Let me show you something else.
Right.
Think about maybe doing this. It's like, well, I have 11 hosta. I want 13. Like, that's kind of what you're absolutely right. Like, that's what you kind of think. So this time of year, another one that when you walk through the nursery, you can't help. It literally almost slaps you in the face right now because it is the season. Highly popular, flies off the shelf. You got to come in this weekend if you want to get what you want. Is the lily crop, the Oriental and the Asiatic lilies. Don't ask me why the names are so similarly different. I don't know, but the Asiatic lilies that we have, I actually know the owner of this company has been around in this industry for decades and decades. Lily Looks. If you want to Google stuff and look at it and whatever, Lily Looks is the name of the brand, and the name of the varieties are Tinies. So they got Tiny Moon, Tiny Lion, Tiny. There's so many I can't remember. You'd have to Google them all. They all have very, very rigid stems, so they don't. You get one rain shower when your lilies are in full bloom. The upright Asiatic style lilies, the rain can part them and they can fall down and look a little rambly and stuff. These are anywhere, each one's just a little bit of variation, but they anywhere between like 11 and 15 inches. So they're very compact, they're very short, they stay tidy. They're ours are grown in groups. I want to say there's 4 or 5 plants per. So when you just plant the pot, just boom, put it in. You have a group of lilies that really turns heads. Lily Looks has some of the most unique color variations and some of the most brilliant color combinations that you can see. They're absolutely amazing. So they're in full bloom right now. Everybody comes in wanting to get the jump on butterfly bush. They're in full bloom right now. So anything that's in the kind of pollinator group is really starting to take off. The Nepeta, which is all the different varieties of the cat mint, that's in full bloom right now. That you'll see a lot of butterflies, hummingbirds, bees around that. It smells both foliar and the flower. Brilliant kind of lavender color. Really easy to grow. Wicked hardy. You can even probably get away with just growing that in an urn and not even moving it inside. Right. So when you walk through the nursery, this is kind of the time of year, like everybody's pretty much got the vast majority of their vegetables in. As we're looking towards the end of June, they're starting to pick things. There's, you're starting to see farmers markets popping up. But if you're planting that perennial garden, now is when that material is glorious to walk through. Even if you really are like, I don't know if I really want to do anything else. Walk through and investigate and kind of take some notes on what the material looks like, because it doesn't look like this in March. This is when the time.
That's a good point. Take some pictures with your phone.
Yeah. Then if you're like, I think I'm going to rip this bed out and redo it next year, but I'm not going to do it till next year. Make sure you do your homework right now and go through and see. You're starting to see the daylilies blooming. This is the time of year when the perennial bench looks like people imagine.
Right.
So if you come through and even the beginning, like Mother's Day, everybody's looking for hanging baskets. Well, we prepped them, grew them early in the season. They are timed to be that way. There's no timing the perennial crop to be ready all at once. The give and take to perennials, they come back year after year, but they generally have a window of interest.
Right.
So when you dabble with a perennial garden or take up some design real estate in your design, you want some stuff that shows a neat interest, that turns your head early, mid, and late, so to speak. You can do that even week by week if you have a big enough garden. But a lot of times we're, like you kind of said, that we're kind of pre-programmed or kind of redundant. A lot of times people want to just plant a mass, which there is a time and a place and a design for that. You see a lot of Pachysandra, in the bottom of amongst a bunch of trees. That's a mass that looks nice. But in the perennial world, if you do that, here's what's going to happen. You're going to have the early it's just starting. It's just waking up. There's nothing going on there. It just looks like a bunch of literally weeds. Funny story about my wife. When she first moved in at my house, she thought she was doing me a really big favor, and we have an island bed on the front of the house. She went out and pulled all the weeds. The weeds happen to be black-eyed Susans.
Oh.
And she told me when I got home, I am almost bloody knuckle because it took me forever to pull all the weeds out of the front bed. What do you mean? What are you talking about? Can we go out and look at this bed?
Well, the intention was
said,
good.
Yeah, I had to use a spade. I had to pull everything out. Good grief. This was just one big mat of this same weed. That's because that was all our color for the island in the end of June, beginning of July. That's so
we must learn over the course of our marriages. You and I, 90% of the learning, of course, in our marriages. Let's jump on the phone.
I'm pretty slow.
Yeah, you and me both, brother. Let's jump on the phone lines. You're on with Josh. Good morning.
Good morning. How do you two do in this fine morning?
We're heckling one another to death.
Hey, Josh, I have a question. When we moved into the house we've been over 35 years to this house, but we sometimes would come up with sweet pea growing. Is that like a weed?
Sweet pea reseeds itself very easily. Sweet pea is one of those plants. I've talked before about the kind of cycle of life. Sweet pea will germinate very easily and grow very readily, and then as it matures and blooms, it will drop random seeds. That seed sits there, it stratifies through the later season, and then when this time of year, it will germinate and start to take over again. There are certain things that spread that way. Like a horrible example is like crown vetch. You use that for hillside water retention and things. A lot of people, this is a great kind of lead into, a lot of people will come and tell me that, my snapdragons are perennial. I want the perennial ones. Well, they're not truly perennial. They'll reseed themselves. So some of the open air, some of the easier grown violas, sweet peas in that. There's some things that will easily cast viable seeds, and then they will continue to come and come and come. So things like the kind of the off the cuff things that is not the norm in your annual garden you have to watch for is the amaranthus in its true traditional form, not a specialty one that's considered sterile. That will seed everywhere, like dill. Cleome, the original cleome plant, that spider flower, or skunk flower, whatever they call it, that will sow itself very readily. Violas, snapdragons, there's a host of things. I'm probably forgetting a few that will just cast their own seeds, and they're viable. They'll grow and they'll come up year after year.
Yeah, I'm looking at one flower bed I have next to a garage. I have evening primrose and hosta growing in right now, but I'm also finding sweet pea growing up in there now.
Is it something you want?
Sweet pea growing up in there with them.
Is it something that's desirable, or will you call it a weed?
That's what I was wondering, if I should leave them be, or should I consider it a weed to get out of there?
That is up to you, because sweet pea is sometimes sown and grown on its own, and it has an application. If it doesn't fit your design, if it doesn't fit your preference, then it's a weed. Anyone could walk through the perennial gardens and call all of them weeds because they come back. If you don't want it there, then it is a weed. If you like it, it fits your design, and it's desirable, then it is not herbaceous or probably a biennial. It reseeds itself. Mm-hmm. But what I will say is, if you let a plant like that, if you let a plant that, reseeds itself readily, come to fruition and age into older blooms, then you will get more, because then it's going to drop the seed again, and it will drop the seed again. If it is considered a weed to you, this is kind of for all the callers out there thinking, I get this junk comes up every year. It's only junk if you don't want it, and if you don't want it in that bed and you let it be, it will repeat itself perpetually. So if you want to kind of stop it in its tracks, or maybe you want sweet pea somewhere else, get rid of it, pull it out, maybe drop some pre-emergent herbicide like Preen to stop it in its tracks if you don't want it where it is. Because if you let it go and you let it get bigger and you decide, that really didn't work out for me the way I wanted, you're going to have seeds there for next year as well.
Well, I'm going to see about maybe trying to keep it from growing too much, maybe. This is a pretty flower, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is grown commercially. You don't find it in a pot a whole lot. Most of the time, I will recommend to a consumer that wants pea in an area to sow it directly, because it's not a plant that does well in a container. It doesn't travel well home. It's a real, it's a vigorous, fast grower. So there's no real need to get a jump on the season by buying a started plant. It's just not a manageable plant to take home and transplant. So almost always I'll tell people to just pick up a pack of seeds, drop them, boom, takes off.
Yeah, we're just about out of time, sir. Thank you for the call as always.
All right, you guys take care and have a blessed week and enjoy the wet weather.
Thank you, sir. You too. We're trying to have a blessed week anyway, right?
Well, we definitely are.
Yeah, you're
I'm
right.
on my third cup of coffee. You're getting Pink Floyd references.
I'm getting Pink Floyd references. We're heading into Friday. I guess it is a blessed time.
I called you a figurehead in the industry.
Figurehead in the industry.
I wasn't referencing any particular sort of figurehead, like not hairband hair or anything like that. I was just saying that you're an icon.
An icon.
In the Erie airwaves.
An icon of the Erie airwaves. Well, I don't know.
I don't want anything. I'm not after
when
anything.
Josh is this complimentary, next week he's going to be doubly rough on me. So I'm just going to gird my loins for next Friday, because wear my armor here to work. Josh, thank you so much as always, sir.
Thank you, Alan.